Hello, my love, and welcome back. Today, we're talking about one of my all-time favorite manifestation tools. We're going to be talking specifically about vision boards. Yes, before you roll your eyes at me and think, Dani, that is so basic, and hopefully that's not what you're thinking, but maybe you are. I don't know. I might think that if I was listening to a podcast about vision boards because they have been a staple in my life and my business for over 14 years now. I've never taken an official class on vision boarding. Every time I've ever put together a vision board of any sort, it has been completely intuitive. There are aspects of coaching and there's certain tools that as I learn them, I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I've been doing that for a really long time just because it felt good and it felt fun and I was called to do that, but I didn't know it was an actual thing that worked, that people did." And that's what vision boarding was for me for a really long time. So I know that vision boarding is one of the very first tools that people dive into or turn to when they're exploring the law of attraction, AKA manifestation. And why is that? It's because they work. And I cannot wait to share with you why and what specifically makes them be so powerful. So, at the time of this recording, it happens to be very early in the year, but what I want you to know is this practice isn't just for the month of January. It's not just for the new year. And the new year is such an interesting term. This is not necessarily the conversation that we're going to have together today, but I always like to preach this a little bit to my clients. As much as I love a fresh start, I mean, I live not only for January 1st, but the first of any month. And I love a Monday. There's just something really expansive about a fresh start. But this is something that you can do anytime. And also, if you happen to fall in the camp, maybe every single year, you aren't really feeling the new year, new everything vibes on January 1st. There's actually a reason for that. And according to different cultures and practices, there's more than one new year. Some people celebrate the new year later in January with the Lunar New Year. And a lot of people recognize the spring equinox, which is in March as the new year, because that's really when we look at the different cycles of nature, that's the true new year. That's when spring starts. That's when the animals come out of hibernation and the plants start to bloom. And so you can do this tool at any time. It doesn't matter, what you're feeling in terms of the new year, what you believe. Funny enough, just because I can be a little extra sometimes, but I typically create more than one vision board. So last year I created two. I had like an overall vision for the year. And I created that at a really fun vision boarding party that I was invited to. And one of my big dreams, it honestly sort of felt like, what do they call it? Like a pipe dream. I was like, I really want this. I don't know if I can make it happen. But it was this trip to Greece. And if you've been following along for any amount of time, then you probably know that that trip happened. And I was so committed to making that happen that I actually created a board specifically for Greece. So I had two last year. The year before that, I actually had three. I think I made one in January, one in February, and I don't know what mom of three who happens to be a CEO finds herself bored. But there was one day, like in the middle of the year, where I was feeling a little bit bored. And because I am the self proclaimed vision boarding manifestation queen and I have all the supplies, I just whipped them out one day and made a third one. So I just share that with you because this is a really fun, cathartic, I think that's the word that I want to use there. It's very therapeutic, it's very meditative. There's some really powerful, potent, proven energetic strategies as to why these work, but you can literally do this anytime. So, what is vision boarding really? Essentially, it's creating a visual representation of the things that you want to create, the things that you want to manifest, the things that you want to call into your life. And these can be really literal things. Like there have been years where I get really literal and really specific. And then there's other years where it's more of a vibe. So you might hear terms like vision board or dream board or manifestation board. There is did I already say like a vibe board? Because it's really just about an energy that you want to call into your life. So there might be material things like a new home or a new car. I have seen people manifest both of those things. It actually, the home that we're in now is one of the dreamiest homes I ever could have imagined. And it wasn't necessarily on my vision board, but I did use a journaling practice where I got really clear. My husband and I got really clear about what we wanted, and we wrote down like every detail. And these were not like non-negotiables. This was how dreamy can we let ourselves get with this? And I kid you not, I think there were 13 or 14 things on that list, dreamy AF things, and this house has 11 of them, which is crazy. So not necessarily a vision board, but still the product of neurolinguistic programming, which we're going to talk about in just a second. One of the things I'm trained in, which is literally just understanding the language of your mind. Maybe there's a particular business milestone. I know I literally had 100K on my board the very first year that I had a $100,000 cash year in my business. If you're prioritizing health, there might be really specific things around health. So whatever it is, however basic it might sound, stay with me here. The truth is, it's a really foundational tool because it is a blend of vision and desire clarity. If there's something you want to create, the clearer you can get, the better. The more clear you are, the better the chances of you actually creating that thing. It weaves in the power of intention. Can I just tell you that at the heart of some of the most powerful work you could ever do, the foundational piece of it is intention. It's intending to create the thing. It's intending a specific result. It's intending to activate a certain energy or clear a certain energy, as well as excitement. So clarity, intention, and excitement. Infusing excitement into what you want is one of the number one ways to literally breathe life, breathe energy into it to allow it to come to fruition. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is the power of having a visual representation. So I don't actually consider myself a visual person. For instance, I talk a lot about intuitive gifts and intuitive superpowers with my clients, and there's a few of them. There's 4 core intuitive superpowers. We're not going to dive into that's. We'll save that for another episode. There's actually other superpowers as well, but there's 4 main ones. One of them you've probably heard of before is clairvoyance, which means clear seeing, and a lot of people actually, whether they realize it or not, have that gift. That is not one of my stronger gifts. And so, although I don't consider myself a visual person, I want to share the science behind vision boards. So, there is something known as, we all have this. This applies to everybody's life, the way that we're wired, the way that our minds work. There's something known as the reticular activating system, RAS, the RAS. And the way the reticular activating system works is it's a part of our subconscious mind. And what happens is when you can learn how to leverage your mind, use it as an asset to propel you where you want to go. I always say that your mind is either your greatest asset or, kind of dramatic, but like your worst enemy. And it's true, is your mindset and the way that you're programming your beliefs getting you closer or further away from where you want to be, right? So the reticular activating system, the RAS, can work either for you or against you. And essentially what is happening is what we feed our mind will then go on a journey to look for that, to look for evidence of that, to recreate that. So there's like so many little examples, but one of my favorite examples to give is when you're going to go buy a new car. And maybe, you ask your friend for some suggestions. I know that honestly, this was me. It was like we were getting ready to upgrade our family from 2 kids to 3 kids. We needed to upgrade our car as a result because our other one was too small. And I hadn't really looked at larger SUVs. I had a crossover, a mini SUV. And I remember someone saying, "Have you seen the Palisade?" Which is what I drive now. And I remember being like, I don't think so. And then can you guess what happened? I literally started seeing them everywhere. I'd be at a stoplight and one would pull up next to me. I'd be on the freeway maybe for 10 minutes and I would see like three pass me by. And I remember thinking, that's kind of a sexy car. I want that car. So there's one example. Another example that I like to give, which is so funny, is when I was pregnant. I feel like I literally saw pregnant women everywhere I went. It was pregnant bellies everywhere. And now that I'm taking a minute to consciously think of this, I don't remember the last time I saw a pregnant woman. And I don't know, there's probably a lot around me and it's just not in my awareness. And so those are sort of silly, small, but very real examples. Let me know. Reach out to me on social. Let me know. Maybe you've had a situation like that. But it's really no different for when it comes to creating our visions. And this is one of the many reasons why vision boards work so well, because regardless of if you consider yourself a visual person or not, every single person's unconscious, subconscious mind stores information in the form of images. And so if you can create a visual that you can see every single day, what that's going to do is without you going, take action, please like run fearlessly and unapologetically towards your goals. But the really cool thing about a vision board is it is lodging these things into your subconscious. So while you're just literally going about living your life, you are exponentially increasing the chances of whatever you desire to happen. Okay. So I have a couple of really fun stories. Let me know. Please message me on social. I love hearing about people's really iconic vision boarding stories. And I mean, I have more than I could even count or share with you again, because I have built at least one, if not multiple vision boards every single year. I think this year was the 14th year. And recording this right now feels really special, really fun, because some years I will do this on my own. I actually really love doing that. And I'll share kind of resources and how I go about doing this, like the logistics, but sometimes I'll just sprawl out in my office or in my living room. I try to do this when the kids are not home, so I really get true alone time, and I'll do it on my own. And sometimes, like I had mentioned last year, I was invited to a vision boarding party with a really fun entrepreneurial networking group that I'm a part of. And so I did that. But this year, literally just a few days ago, I hosted a mommy daughter vision boarding brunch at my home. I invited a handful of my closest local friends, and all of them happened to have little girls. And we spent hours upon hours building these vision boards together. So you can do this on your own. You could do this with your people. But one of my favorite stories is there was, gosh, I don't even remember how many years ago it was, but I love Oprah. I've always been an Oprah fan. And so Oprah typically, back in the day, she doesn't have it anymore. I don't think so, but she used to have O magazine. If you can get your hands on some O magazines, if you know what I'm talking about. Again, I don't think they exist anymore. So if you find out how to get them, please let me know. But the O magazine was just super bright and inspirational and just really beautiful, from the photos to the colors to the words to the different categories of the magazine. Anyway, Oprah would typically end up, and I literally have a vision board right above where I'm working and speaking to you from, and I can see her. I can see her. It's her dancing in a colorful dress, and it says, "Let every step you take move you forward." And so Oprah's on my vision board. And there was this one year where there was Oprah on my vision board. And there was also a couple of other people on my vision board for that year. Funny enough, I had two vision boards that year and they were both in front of me. And I remember my mom calling me, and I was actually sitting in my office chair at my desk. And so I picked up my phone, and little hack here, pro tip, put your vision board somewhere you can see it every day. Maybe it's in your bedroom. I actually know people, I've never done this, but I know people who will make a vision board and then make photocopies of it and put it in multiple places, like put it inside, tape it inside of cabinets in their kitchen and in their bathroom where they're opening things up. Brilliant. Again, I've never done that. My vision boards are typically gigantic. And so I put them in one place. Mine are always, they always end up in my office, which is where I spend a lot of my time and it works for me. But my mom called me and said, "You'll never guess who I got us tickets to see." And one of the other people on my board that year was Garth Brooks. I'm a huge Garth Brooks fan. And my eye caught Garth Brooks right away because I wanted to see him in concert so badly. And I go, "Garth Brooks." And she goes, "No." And here's the thing, I never would have guessed that we would see Oprah. Like at the time, Oprah's show was done. She wasn't like really doing things. And she goes, "No, it's even better. It's Oprah." And I remember my eyes switched from staring at Garth Brooks to like 4 inches to the right. And I had a picture of Oprah and I didn't understand. I was like completely mind boggled. And my mom went on to say that Oprah was going on tour for the very first time and she was creating something known as the Live Your Best Life weekend. And so, oh my gosh, I have chills just thinking about this again. It was amazing. So we went to that. And wouldn't you know, a few months later, Garth Brooks did his like final tour, which funny enough, I think he did his final tour like 3 times in a row. I not only saw Oprah, but I saw Garth Brooks that same year. And then a few years later, Oprah went on tour again. And so I just think there's something so cool knowing I didn't get to meet her yet. I didn't get to hug her yet. However, knowing that I got to be in the same room as someone who I love and admire and someone whose story I'm so inspired by. And I don't think that there's a person, I mean, if has who on this planet who has never heard of the name Oprah. I mean, she's one word. That's how famous and iconic she is. If you've never heard of Oprah, please message me because I'm curious how that has happened. What rock have you been living under? Which I say jokingly because there's a lot of things going on. A lot of movies I've never watched, a lot of things I'm not aware of, and I constantly feel like I'm an old lady living under a rock. Um, but with that said, let's go ahead and segue into how to actually create your vision board. So I want you to take a couple of deep breaths. I have created a vision board, at least one every single year for the last 14 years. Many years, I create more than one. When I was pregnant with my second daughter and I knew that I wanted to have an unmedicated birth, I made a vision board just for my pregnancy. So I will literally make vision boards, dream boards, vibe boards for very specific things. And so I've probably created over 2 dozen of these. And I want you to know that there is no right or wrong way to do this. I think there are ways that you can do this to like optimize the experience, but this is really for you. And the most important thing is that it feels good and ideally is really fun. And I say that because this is one of the very first things that I was teaching as a certified life and business coach. I mean, the very first paid live event that I ever hosted was a vision boarding experience at my home. And then the next year it garnered enough interest that I ended up spending several hundreds of dollars at the time, like year 2 of being in business. That version of Dani, that seemed like gigantic to her, but I think I ended up having like 20 to 30 women in a room. And I remember it was towards the end of the event. We had been together for maybe 3 or 4 hours. And a woman had walked up to me and sweet, sweet soul, her board was still blank. And I was like, let's chat. Like, what's going on, love? And she just felt a lot of pressure. She didn't want to mess it up. She didn't want to get it wrong. And that was when I had to tell her there is no way to mess it up. There is no way to get it wrong. And you can build it. And if you don't love it, you can change it or you can build another one. So if you've never built a vision board, or maybe you have and it hasn't been a really wonderful experience, right now as you're digging into this, release any pressure, release any like unnecessary expectations you're putting on yourself because they're just that completely unnecessary. This gets to be fun. This gets to be simple. This gets to be expansive. This gets to be high vibe. This literally gets to be whatever you want it to be. So I'm going to give you a few different things to consider. Like you can literally stop the podcast right now, head over to Pinterest, start printing out images, go on to Amazon, buy a vision boarding book. I will, in the show notes, I'll share some of my favorite links to vision boarding supplies and a couple of other sort of stealthy pro tip resources and how I get stacks and stacks of magazines for like pennies on the dollar every single year. I'm like really going to give it all to you. But you could also just stop the podcast right now, like I said, and go do all of those things. But if you want a little bit more guidance, hang out with me for a few more minutes. So first of all, it can be really helpful to first get clear on a few of your intentions. You don't have to do that. You can literally just start looking through images and noticing what sparks joy and what lights you up and what you're intuitively drawn to. That's definitely part of the process. But I typically go into a vision boarding experience, and I teach my clients this as well, with a couple of things to consider. What are the areas of your life that you really want to prioritize and focus on? Maybe it's for the year. Maybe you're building this like in the second half of the year. So it's for the next 6 months. Maybe there's something really specific. Like I said, I built one of these for my pregnancy and I wanted to remember how strong I was. And I really wanted to encourage the natural birth. And just last year, I built one specifically for Greece. So if you know what it is that you want to call in, jot those things down, write them down. I also am a huge fan. You don't have to do this. I talked about this on one of the other podcast episodes. I love choosing a word and or a theme for every year. And so I think every single time I've ever built a vision board, I'm like thinking back and reflecting. It almost always has my word and my theme. Like I will either find it in a magazine or I like to get really artsy and I'll cut out different letters from different photos and I'll sort of collage it together. I just love how that looks. So if you have a word or a theme, you're definitely going to want to include that. So just thinking about what it is that you want. I know there was a year where I felt like the tiger was my spirit animal and I really wanted a tiger. So, first things first, thinking about what are your desires? What do you want to manifest? What do you want to prioritize? What areas of your life do you want to focus on? Jotting those things down so that they're top of mind. What you'll do next is you want to gather different images and words. I am a gigantic fan of magazines. I love magazines. I feel like a weirdo because I have anywhere from like 6 to 10 magazine subscriptions every year, and magazines can get pricey. So here's the hack. There is a website. At the time of this recording, it exists because how do I know? I just resubscribed since I completed my vision boarding party for this year. I want to restock. So right now it is active. Depending on when you listen to this, it might not be a thing anymore, but if you Google, it's called Blue Dolphin. If you Google Blue Dolphin magazine subscriptions, they have insane deals. Like you can get up to 6 magazine subscriptions for $2 each. So by the time you check out, you pay a total of $12 and you now have 6 magazine subscriptions. So do the math on that. It's a lot of magazines over the span of a year. So you could do that. And you can just go old school. I literally go to the Dollar Tree and the poster boards are gigantic. So I'll normally have my husband get like an X-Acto knife and cut them smaller. I also have a really beautiful burlap board that I got at a Home Goods a few years ago that I'll use again and again. You can even, if you want to keep it like relatively small for whatever reason, I'm a fan of it's 11 by 17 cardstock. Several of my vision boards are that. Some of them are big poster boards. Some of them are half side. You guys, if you came into my office right now, you would think I'm a crazy woman in the best possible way. And I feel that way. I just have this like unshakable belief in these tools and the power of our mind and the law of attraction. But I literally have vision boards all over the place, different sizes. So you could do that. The other thing that you can do is you can create a digital vision board. A lot of people have their vision board like inside of Pinterest. They have a 2025 Pinterest board. I really love that. The only thing is you want to make sure that you create a board that you can see on a regular basis. And I like physical things that I can literally put in front of my face. Things on my phone I forget about. So that's just me. However, speaking of phone, last year was the first time that I created a physical digital board, which I've done many, many times, but for the first time, I created a vision board. Did I say digital? I created a physical one, but I created a digital one for my phone using Canva, and I love it. Oh my goodness. I want you to see this. I'm going to put this on my social media somewhere. So much of what I wanted came to fruition. Some of it hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to keep these images. I feel like I want to turn this podcast episode. I'll share the Zoom video. We'll put it somewhere, probably on YouTube, but I'm showing you right now. It's crazy. There's a picture of this woman literally in Greece doing the flying dress photo. And I literally recreated this. When people see this now, they're like, oh, that's so cool. You put your picture there. I'm like, hun, that ain't me. And they don't believe me because I recreated something directly off of my vision board from last year. So you can do both. You can create a physical one that you hang up somewhere in your home, or you can literally go into Canva for free and just Google, I think it's vision boarding templates or iPhone vision board template, and create that. So I will be doing that again this year. And then I think that's it. Let me look at my notes here. Arrange, assemble, have fun. Rule of thumb, if you really want to take your time with this when it comes to building a physical vision board, I like to give myself 3 to 4 hours. When I had my friends over, we really took our time. We had a lot of fun. We were laughing. We had yummy food. We had music on in the background. It was a whole vibe. I had candles and diffusers and all that good stuff. So set the space, let it be a really incredible, creative, inspirational activity. But again, I like to give myself 3 to 4 hours. That might sound like a lot, but if you really want to take the time, I like to say it takes about 90 minutes or so, maybe a little bit more, to look through all of the different magazines and vision boarding books, which you can buy on Amazon. I use those in conjunction with magazines. And then it takes another 90 minutes to 2 hours to really arrange your board and get it just the way that you want it. So those are things that I like to keep in mind. If you are going to have a vision boarding party at your house and get some friends over, or maybe host something of your own, if this goes with, whatever you do for a living, maybe you're a coach like me and you want this to be an offering, make sure you give yourself plenty of time. Please don't let this be a 1-hour activity. You could create a small digital vision board in an hour or less, but if you're going to create a physical one, give yourself plenty of space. I've already mentioned this a few times, but make sure that once you make your board, put it somewhere you can see it. If you don't do that, it kind of sort of defeats the purpose of it. So thank you so much for joining me today. I truly believe that vision boards are one of the simplest yet most powerful ways to keep your goals front and center. It's about planting the seeds in your subconscious and letting God, the universe, life, even your own inspired action, do the heavy lifting for you. And as always, I'm so grateful to each and every one of you who take the time to tune in. If you find this episode helpful, please share it with a friend who might need a little push to dream a whole lot bigger. And stay tuned. There's a lot more manifestation magic coming your way in the next several episodes. Until then, my love, happy vision boarding. And remember, the moment you decide you're worthy of your dreams is the moment that you start attracting them with ease. I love you so much, and I'll see you next time. Psst. Hey, are you still there? I know that I just officially wrapped up this episode all about the power of vision boards and how to create one. But little did I know that while I was recording that episode, an incredible client of mine, she is a fellow coach, energy healer, and she's actually getting ready to host her first vision boarding event ever. She sent me a message with a handful of really incredible specific questions, specifically related to how to host a gathering, things to keep in mind, where to get the supplies, what do you need on hand, what does it make sense to charge for an event like this, if that's something that you choose to do. It was honestly a list of almost a dozen questions, and I thought the timing of that was so perfect. So as you know, this episode was really all about you creating your own vision board. But if you have any desire to host a gathering, to take it a step further, maybe you want to do this with your friends, with your loved ones, which I have done many times, almost on an annual basis, but this is also part of my business. A vision boarding event was one of the ways I launched my business. It was one of my very first paid offerings. And so whether you want to do this for fun or you want to do this as a beautiful value add to whatever you're doing inside of your entrepreneurial journey, something to share with your ideal clients, having access to the information that I share in that recording is going to be a game changer for you. So I've set this up as a private podcast. It is totally free. If you want access to it, make sure you click the link in the show notes, and that will take you to it. And it literally breaks down the ins and outs, the tips, the tricks, the things that I have learned along the way that are going to support you wildly if there's any part of you that has the desire to not only build a vision board, but do it with people that you love, to share it as an offering. So click below to grab that link. I hope you enjoy that. And again, I love you so much. I'll see you on the next episode.